pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of thy pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Thank you. You guys may be seated. Do I have a volunteer today for an invocation, a motivational phrase, or words of wisdom? And it's okay if not. I've got some words of wisdom today. If it doesn't change you, it won't change you. So that made an impact on me, I thought, when I read that. I thought it was pretty well worded, very brief, but good words to live by. We do have some guests today, so we'll kind of go around the room. John's taking roll, I think. Yep. Okay. So we'll start with Heather. Heather today has filled out an application, which is fantastic. Thank you.
Heather.
Yeah. I'll give you a second to kind of tell the club about yourself.
Okay. Well, I moved up here to Redmond from Davis, California back in February of 2020. Came to a few Kiwanis meetings, and then obviously everything shut down. So in Davis, I was a member of the Optimists and also a member of the Odd Fellows. So I very much like to volunteer and be involved in the community.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. What's your last name?
Barnes.
Thank you. We also have Bree and Emily here today from Every Child Central Oregon. Thank you guys. They're our presenters. You're going to learn more about them here in just a few minutes. And then Michelle will introduce our other guest.
Jackie Taylor is the Rimrock Trails Child and Family Program Manager. She, if any of you saw our new space downtown, Jackie's the one that makes it happen down there. And so looking for another family program manager, as many children and teens need some help right now. So keep your eyes open.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for being here. As we move into announcements, I wanted to thank you guys again every week. You guys are doing so well getting those orders in early. She really does like them by 4 o'clock on Tuesday. It helps her morning get a little easier, helps the kitchen. So if possible, please try to send them in by the end of Tuesday. Otherwise, everything is good. She's been giving me great feedback. She's very pleased. Carl's back. So get your volunteer hours into him. Earl, do you have an update on the food project?
Well, I do.
I would love to hear it.
We had a collection on Saturday. Unfortunately, we did not do as well as we've done in the past. We only had 220 pounds to collect, about half of what we normally get. I'm hoping that this next collection cycle, which will be at the end of May, that we will be able to get closer to the 600 mark that we've been able to hit several times. For those of you who are new, we collect food every other month for St. Vincent's Food Bank over here. And we do this in partnership with Redmond Food Projects. So if you would like to bring a bag of food, let me know. I will give you a bag. You can fill it up and we'll be glad to collect it for you. Yes.
Do you have bags with you?
Yes.
I would like one.
Okay, I'll get it right after the meeting. Thank you.
Is it the last Saturday in May? Is the collection date?
We're looking at, I think, the 28th at this time. Unfortunately, I think that's Memorial Day weekend. So that may not be the best time to do it. So we're going to talk about that and I'll let you know for sure. We're far enough out that it should not affect anybody.
Thanks. No birthdays this week. We did have one anniversary, David and Molly, last week, so they get recognition twice. So it must have been a big one. I don't know how many years, but their wedding anniversary was the 28th. Good news. Friday, July 8th, we have our annual Vintners. That is sponsored by which we are excited about. Thursday, May 5th, we have the Redmond Community Prayer Breakfast. So we're looking forward to that. We're getting ready to put that on. We've been in the planning process the last couple weeks and more to come on that. But it is Thursday morning, May 5th. This Friday, April 1st at 7 p.m., we have the Raven Pageant. We don't have it, but the Ridgeview Raven Pageant is going on. I was going to let Amber, there you are, talk for a second about that.
I just wanted to know if anybody knew if we have any Key Club kids in either of the pageants. I know, I mean, I've supported there. It's a fun thing to go to. Olivia was my last one. All my kiddos, you know, been gone, kind of cycled out now. So I don't know a lot of the kids coming up, but it would be something good, I think, to support if we know if any of the Key Club kids are in that, so that we can, you know, show the support and then also, you know, kind of generate some more interest in Kiwanis with kids that may not know about us or that club.
Yeah.
What kind of a pageant is it? Talent show or something?
So it's different. They kind of changed over the years, and I don't know. So in years past, they partner up and they do different things to raise money, like collect change, bake cakes, and the cakes are really cool. That's what I've always gone to, is they auction off the cakes, and it's a team and you can bid on them and everybody gets into it. It's in the audience, and then the funds go to different, in the past it's always gone to St. Charles Nico. This year
It's the cancer unit.
yeah, so but it's good. It gets the kids out in the community and, you know, raising funds for a really good cause. And I don't know if it has, do you guys know what the pageant is this year?
I don't know the theme.
I can do some checking, and I'd be happy to check into that and send something to Josh, and then maybe you can send it out. And then if anyone's available to go and support, if we have some Key Clubs, that would be good.
They've raised over 8,000 so far for the cancer center. It is $7 at the door at 7 p.m. We can go ahead and do 50-50 and then we'll move into the free batch. Oh,
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I know that Ridgeview participates in getting it started and going. I don't know what they're doing this year. They've sort of been on a difficult path. They changed the period in which they have the meetings. And so they've had a situation that will change the students that are coming. And they're coming back pretty strong, but they're still working. And I will also admit, I haven't been to a meeting for quite some time because I was like, don't come. It's like a petri dish here.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the update for me.
Okay.
no.
So it's about time to get everything organized for Oktoberfest. I need to have our first planning meeting probably next week to pick our date. We generally try to avoid Ben's Oktoberfest, and I don't really want to pick a date until I see them pick a date, because they are going to be back on. And if we're in the same time frame, they're doing a whole week. It's just good to avoid it. So we'll play with that a bit, but I'd like to maybe get together next week, next Wednesday evening, maybe at E-Bar and Grill at 5 or 5:30, depending on what people think is better for their work schedule. I don't know, does anybody have a preference there? But anybody that wants to be involved, we've had quite a bit of turnover with committee members on Oktoberfest, and I'm gonna need a lot of help with the silent auction. We really got that optimized very well last year with an electronic system. Ann Graham was the best with that. She's no longer really active with the club. I don't know how much she'll help, but hopefully she'll help somebody transition into that role. So I'm gonna need somebody to take that role. Quite a few things that'll need to be done. So anybody that's interested, it's one of the biggest fundraisers for our club. And if we do things right, the way we made money on the electronic version of the silent auction last year, I think we could triple our income easily if we do things right. And we're super optimistic now, so we don't need as many volunteers. I'm pretty excited about the possibilities. So if you want to help transform it into a little bit better money-making operation for us, please come down. Grill next Wednesday, 5 p.m.
Hey, Noah,
Yes.
I will not be in town that day, but I am interested in helping with the committee.
Cool. And we'll start meeting probably about every 3 weeks until we get a little closer, every 2-3 weeks until we get a little closer once we start. So next Wednesday will be the first meeting.
Thanks, Noah.
Friday, April 1st is the first Friday of the month, and it's our turn to serve at Jericho Table. I've got one volunteer already, could use one or two more. Meet at Church of God Seventh Day on 4th Street at about 4:30, 4:45, and you're there for about an hour. Serving meal for people in need. Anybody interested? Okay, if you are, let me know.
Any other? Ron?
Yeah, I have a good friend locally who is working for Oasis Village, and I guess it's I don't know much about it, but it's a transitional kind of program for homeless folks locally. And they're looking for a trailer, an 18-foot trailer that they can use, and they would obviously take it as a donation, but they're willing to pay out $6,500 for it. So if anybody has any leads on that, let me know.
John, let's put 50. I think we're.
Would you mind pulling ticket out and making one friend and a whole lot of enemies?
Okay. No pressure, right?
Yeah, go ahead and read the number.
Okay, 564927.
Here.
What?
Welcome back.
$15 and you get to have you.
Okay, who's happy?
I got to sneak out of town with the kids and go to Boise for the spring break. So we had a great time. Boise's an awesome place if you haven't been there. So yeah, so I'm happy about that.
Good.
And I was home alone.
Wait a second.
I bet you were at the office.
I got some happy dollars. I am so happy to be here. It's been several months. I'm glad to be home. I'm happy to learn that I don't think I'm a snowbird. You know, a couple of months in Arizona was just too much for me. And John, I don't know how you do it. $1 in there. My mother-in-law passed away while we were there, but it was a long illness, and she's in a better place. And did I say? So happy to see you all and be here with you.
We've got a couple happy dollars. We're gonna see a baseball team is winning series. We're not winning all the games. And the wrestling coaches, year for the whole day. NCAA. Oh, I mean, beat the Iowa guy out. We had a day at the High Desert Museum. When we're teaching, science teachers, that's always a fun day to go there. But what made it extra special is that I brought a Chevy Bolt EV, and they have free electrons. You just plug it in, and I was able to go down and back. It didn't cost me a penny as far as gasoline went. Number two, I got to mow my lawn. Not really my lawn, my leaves this week. I'm lazy, so I just drive the lawnmower around, chops them up, puts them in. Pretty nice to do that. Let's see, I have one other thing I thought I was going to tell you about, but I can't remember what it was. I'll just throw it in here and say, I'm glad I'm here. So happy dollar in. I got a phone call this afternoon, rather this morning. The people at Redmond High will be meeting tomorrow at 11:10. It'll be the first time that we've been able to get into the school to be at the meeting with them.
Oh, I see. Happy 5, excited to take the boys to their first Beaver game this Sunday for baseball. Kale's getting into the baseball thing, and so we're taking them over there to watch the Beavers. That'll be fun. And then a hunting cabin I've been working on and slaving with my family for the last 6 months is basically finished, has beds in it, places to sleep, places to sit and cook. So we're all excited to actually use it instead of just work on it all the time.
Where is it?
It's on the breaks of the John Day River straight east of Grass Valley out there.
We got one took my my son, my daughter-in-law, and my two grandchildren to their first Portland Trailblazers game last week. And they managed to lose, but that's what they do. So
Not as badly as the Beavers basketball team.
No.
I'm putting in $1. Our office is up and running. We just have to get our signage up that we're able to go work there. So I'm super excited. We took over Rimrock Trails old building. So I appreciate Michelle giving me the lead on that.
Awesome. I'm having for our special guest here today. Excited to hear what they have to say. Sure. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm happy to see the rain.
Well, I'm pretty happy. I gotta take $1 back from the 5 so I can leave a tip. My wife and I were in Hawaii for 3.5 weeks, just back last Friday. Wonderful time on 2 different islands. It was a great time so glad to be back. And it was time to come home.
Last Saturday was the prettiest day we've had in a long time, so we got outside and planted a bare roots rose, a present from my sister. It had been sitting in the garage for, I think it was 3 weeks, waiting to be planted. It looks good. The downside was, once we got out and started that, my wife kept finding other things we could do.
That's how that works.
Well, I've got 5 for 4 missed meetings and spent 3 weeks in Kauai. We ran into Roland and Gail once by accident and once on purpose. And so anyway, it's good to be back. And Josh, do you have happy dollar?
I don't have any money.
Okay, poor Josh is poor.
Now I really don't have any money. So we're gonna move right into the free bet.
I
Sorry,
really got my money's worth. I bought it for $20 and I've got like 5 weeks out of it. But I just want to remind you guys, this Friday, we have our little fundraiser. Actually, it's turned out to be a huge fundraiser with Wild Ride Brewing. As you might remember, Wild Ride made a beer called Kefir Magic. He's the IPA after our friend Kefir Luchap, who passed away through by mental illness in October. And so for the night, they're going to give Rimrock Trails $1 on April 1st from 6 to 10 at Wild Ride Brewing. $1 for every pint sold. They're also giving us money off the Kefir Magic swag that they're selling. And I've become a beer distributor. This has become a movement. We have about 7 other businesses now in Redmond who have picked up Kefir Magic and the keg of Kefir Magic and are selling it and giving Rimrock Trails the proceeds from that as well. Wow. So I've a beer distributor, I've turned hats, but please do come and we're gonna have a great time. If you need more information about it, you can go to the Rimrock Trails website and it has all the details. So thanks, guys. And now you gotta put it up for auction, the free badge.
Yeah, the free badge is up for auction. So I'll let John be our auctioneer so he can monitor the money. But
there we go, right here. Oh, you want me? Okay.
Yeah, you do it.
Michelle bought it for 20, so let's at least start there. You obviously got it. I got her money out of it. $20.
Will
Come
you
on, Roland,
remind
you've been on
everyone what it?
vacation.
oh yeah, tell us what the free badge is, John.
Free badge is an opportunity to promote your business or promote anything you want to say. You get a couple minutes at the start of every meeting to say whatever it is you want to say without getting fined. Usually if you promote your business or you'll get fined for that, but in this case you don't, because you buy insurance with the free badge. So does anybody want to do $20? Right there. It's fertilizer season, isn't it, John? All right, how about 21? We'll go up by $1. $21. 22. Going 22? 22? Going once? Going twice? Sold to Amber for $21. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
All right. Did you guys all watch the Oscars the other night?
Yeah.
No, didn't watch the Oscars, just a part of it.
Did anybody actually watch?
Yeah, they're all true.
Really?
Yeah, since 2 o'clock.
So I read that there was an incident on stage, and then some yelling. Yeah.
Everybody's heard.
Well, so I tell you that because I tell a joke every week and I'm not funny. Chris Rock is actually funny. He got slapped. So I thought about discontinuing my jokes. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I like Tom.
We won't slap you.
Thanks. So my joke this week, what do you call a typo on a tombstone? Pretty easy. My son told me this joke. So you know what a tombstone is, yeah? There's a typo on there. What do you call that?
A grave error.
A grave error. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, I'm going to read you guys a quick bio on Every Child Central Oregon. Some of you may or may not know that is my presidential project this year. That is the organization I selected. Their executive director, Melissa, is a friend of mine. I've known her for probably 15 or 16 years. She was my banker back at Washington Mutual, way back when. And we stuck with her through the Chase transactions, and then she went to Guild Mortgage. Thank you. I was drawing a blank there, and was a lender for several years, and then kind of pseudo retired to kind of spend time with her family, and has since joined Every Child Central Oregon, or kind of launched it here in Central Oregon. And so I'm going to read you a little snippet that she emailed me. She is unable to be here today. You guys will probably talk a little bit about what she's got going on. But she says, Every Child Central Oregon serves Deschutes, Crook, Jefferson, and their counties, and the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs by mobilizing community to uplift and support those impacted by foster care. Every Child Central Oregon relentlessly advocates and supports local children and families impacted by foster care, committing to finding safe, nurturing homes where they can flourish during their time in care. Additionally, ECCO provides to youth in care, families providing care, families and their partners working in child welfare. With over 400 children experiencing foster care annually here in Central Oregon, ECCO believes everyone has an opportunity to connect with, support the foster community, creating a more positive outcome for our community as a whole. So learn more. So I'm going to let these ladies come on up and give us their presentation. You guys have a slideshow or?
Yes.
Okay. I think Dave has
Yeah,
it.
it went to Dave.
So what I'd like for you guys to do is kind of just tell Dave when you're ready to advance, and he'll go ahead and push the button on the screen.
Okay.
And the floor is yours. You can see it here, you can see it here.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, and that works for us. There is a little bit of a delay. The internet's kind of laggy.
Okay.
But as you probably have seen this morning, the owl will follow you around the room so they can hear you. You guys can walk around, do your thing.
Well, thank you all for having us today. It's a big honor for us to be able to be in person and to meet with this group. We're going to talk a little bit about how we work together. We have a little presentation for you that balances our different perspectives. So we'll just kind of launch into that because if I say too much now, then we'll spoil the slides that are coming up. But we call this a community conversation about the foster care system in Central Oregon because it really is a community. I guess next. Oh, there we go. So this is where I didn't want to spoil anything. So my name is Emily Kotaich. I work for ODHS, the Oregon Department of Human Services, as the Resource Family Retention and Recruitment Specialist, or champion. I feel really weird saying champion, so I say specialist. But essentially, I work on behalf of our foster families. So ODHS is broken up into districts, and so our district covers kind of what we understand as Central Oregon, so Crook, Deschutes, and Jefferson counties. I'm part of a local and statewide team that is working on these working to build support and resources for our families. So I do a lot of community outreach and build partnerships with all of our amazing community resources that we have in Central Oregon to better serve our families and youth. I've been more involved in the nonprofit sector prior to coming over to ODHS, which really helps lend to my passion for strengthening kind of at the community level and using all the different resources that we have. I have lived here for about 10 years, and fun fact that I didn't include on here, I was the president of Key Club in high school. So, and I love miniature donkeys. So that's why you're that cute.
This year, president.
I had that memory flip back. I was like, oh yeah, I did that. So,
Did you flip her?
somebody's clicking for us.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Someone's clicking for you.
Before I tell you about myself, so we have the pleasure of working with Redmond Key Club this year. I had the kind of point of contact in the school reach out because they wanted to have a gift box drive location there. And when she reached out, she was like, I just want to be really honest and transparent. Like, I'm not sure how many gifts will get donated in here. And you know, I always tell people it's about the gifts, sure, but it's more about people seeing our signage and getting exposed to kind of our and our logo and maybe going home and wondering about us. She was very excited and happy to share that I had to go empty their box 7 times.
Wow.
In the only 3 weeks they had the box. So they entered the game a little late, and I luckily just live around the corner, but yeah, it was really remarkable. So side note, but that totally reminded me. My name is Brieanna. I also go by Bree. I'm the program manager and community investment coordinator for Reach Health Central Oregon. I am serving as Melissa's 10th fill-in while she's on maternity leave, doing my very best to even just try on her very big shoes that she wears and all the roles she fills. Melissa is not here with us today because they joyously adopted and welcomed a new baby into their family a month ago, and she is just a precious little doll. I do several things at Every Child. I write all of our grants, help with our fundraisers, but my primary duty is running our tangible giving program called My Neighbor. We'll get into it later, but it's a real-time need request for families and youth impacted by foster care. They share their needs with us. We get those needs, make sure that they're anonymous, post them to a community donor site, and then community members come alongside their very own neighbors to help supply those needs. I also serve as a person that helps just connect resource foster providers to other resources that could benefit them. I go out into the community. I have the wonderful opportunity to present in front of people just like today, just providing some education about what the foster system looks like in Central Oregon. We are a vast, spread, beautiful area filled with people from all different walks of lives. And so I help just kind of encapture the reality of what we're looking at in our own community. I am a native Oregonian. I grew up in Eugene, as did my husband, who attended the same high school as me. It was a large high school, and I did not know his name. We moved to Redmond 9 years ago, established our family here. We moved here with a 4-month-old baby. We were freshly 21 and had no family here. So our family thought we were crazy, but we just felt really called to Central Oregon. So we love it here. We have 3 kids. They're 3, 6, and 9. If anybody is looking to take on a wily 3-year-old girl anytime, give me a call. She'll keep you young. She keeps me young. We love to be outdoors. Hiking, camping, fishing. Those are all sorts of our jams. Hanging out on lakes, and we love Oregon Beach. So, Emily is gonna kind of lead you through this first part of the presentation. We'll take a seat.
Sounds good. Next, whoever has got the power. So it might kind of be striking that Every Child, a nonprofit, and ODHS, a state agency, are here together, but I think it just shows the power of our partnership. We've realized that we work a lot better if we do things together and in sync and communicate together. We can serve more people more deeply if we are talking to each other. So we work together day to day, we're talking to each other. And also we love to partner because we know that maybe, my ultimate goal is that we have more foster families, right? But I know that everyone isn't necessarily destined for fostering right now. But I know that everyone can do something to help. And by working with every child, we can get people plugged in where it makes sense for them at any time, you know, from donating a box of diapers to providing respite to maybe one day fostering themselves. We know that, you know, if we get people plugged in on this trajectory, they can get engaged and we can work with them maybe for many years to come. So that's kind of why we're here together. We hope that Central Oregon has abundance of foster families, where we have more foster families waiting for kids than kids waiting for foster families. That's our hope and vision. So we can go on to the next one. So I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of framework around ODHS and child welfare, because that might help you understand a little bit of how kids end up in foster care. So we'll go through the different areas of child welfare, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about what foster kiddos we have locally. So on to the next one. So the screening hotline is open 24/7. It's a centralized hotline that people can call in when they have concerns of abuse or neglect. There's mandatory reporters that are mandated to call if they see or hear of something, but also just community members. If you see something that doesn't quite sit right, I encourage people to call when in doubt. The screeners will take your information. Calls are anonymous. And even if it's something that's kind of small, you might make that report, nothing comes of it, but it does get logged and tracked. So if there are future reports of concern, they can look back and kind of see if there's been a history. So the number's right there, and I can make sure that you guys get that afterwards. So if an assessment is necessary, so if a worker is needed to go out and check on the safety of a child, that goes to our Child Protective Services or CPS unit. So they're going to go out and just check on the safety of the home and the children. Sometimes that results in an unfounded, you know, if there's really nothing to worry about, they're going to document that. But sometimes it can also founded concern and sometimes unable to determine, like, we have concerns, but we don't quite have enough information to say that it's founded. So we'll go on to the next one. So for those cases when a child is found to be unsafe in the home and we need to find a temporary placement for them, they would be assigned a permanency worker. So the worker is the worker that follows the child kind of throughout the life of their case. So they're working on behalf of that child, but they're also working with that child's parents or family of origin to try to get them the services and support that they need to be able to safely parent their children and welcome their children back. So there, you know, there's a lot of legal stuff involved at this point. We're working in tandem with the courts, and they're really directing what we're doing as far as placing children outside of homes, reunification, adoption. It's a very long process, and my favorite words are case by case. Every case looks a little different that we're working with. And then the other unit that we have is certification. So every family, foster family, resource family, I put the terms later on in this presentation, but we're using that kind of interchangeably now, families being resource and foster families. So those foster families have to go through a pretty tedious background check, training, and have ongoing contact with their certifier. So the certifier is kind of the foster family's caseworker that works with them throughout. So I'm going to the next one. Thanks, Dave, wherever you are. So, you know, there's a lot of underlying reasons why people get involved in the child welfare system, right? So we're hoping that in our vision, and this is a statewide vision that is really propelling our work, that we can get more resources to families before children have to be taken into temporary care. We know that a strong safety net is going to be what helps families be self-sufficient on their own. So that's going to look like more in-home safety supports, in-home resources whenever possible. We want to prevent unnecessary foster care placements whenever possible by bringing in those resources, because we know inherently there is some trauma linked with coming in foster care. And we are focusing on making sure that foster care is family-based. So whenever possible, we have families or kin or relatives that are known to a child that we'll place a child with before we will kind of go into our general pool of foster families. We want to make sure it's time limited, culturally responsive, and really looking at that whole family unit. The next one, okay, this is my turn page. So foster families are now being referred to as resource families. It's just a language change kind of to encompass the fact that we are looking at the whole family unit and that the resource families often are a whole support to the family of origin, not just the child. General resource families, so those are our community members, individuals, or family units that come forth and say, I want to be a resource for a child. They're referred to as our general resource families. And then we also have those relatives or child-specific families. Another term you might hear is respite care. So that is just kind of short-term, a few hours to overnight care that is provided to foster youth. And it just gives our resource families a little bit of a break. As you can imagine, parenting any child is a lot of work. And so we always like to try to provide respite connections whenever possible. So everybody can have some time to refresh. So next slide. So kind of looking at our goals as a collaborative, we're looking at really trying to cultivate our community to understand these children and families who are our neighbors, who we know, or we might see at the grocery store, and understand that, you know, that these are kind of our community's children, right? We want to find more resource families. So like I said, we have more appropriate placements for our kids, not just a home that really works well for their unique needs. And just kind of being a little bit more open about what things are looking like, what trends we're seeing, what challenges we're seeing, because we know that we can't really work in a silo and solve this. We have to really collaborate with one another.
Are there a lot of group homes that you support as well?
There are not a lot of group homes in Central Oregon for kind of the general youth population. That's more in the developmental disability realm that they have more group homes. There are some specialized programs around the state, but not a lot that are located in Central Oregon. I bet Grandma could talk a little bit about the challenges we have in some of those things. So just a little context about how youth enter foster care. So it typically starts with a screening report or multiple screening reports, assessments, going into the home and checking safety of children. So if children are found to be unsafe and, you know, we can't get the supports in the home to guarantee safety for those children, that's when we're going to look at a temporary custody situation where we're going to the court and asking. So we're first going to say, is there anyone that you know, that the child knows, that we can work with and certify them to care for the child? A lot of times these family units, they don't have a lot of stability. They don't necessarily have those connections. And so that's when we're looking at our general pool of resource families to take on temporary care. And as you can imagine, you know, a lot is happening in a very short amount of time, and they don't always come with everything they need. So the basics, diapers, clothing, car seats, and there's just always kind of been this gap where, as an agency and state bureaucracy, I probably don't need to go into too deep, you know, it's hard for us to meet those immediate needs just the way things work. And so at a statewide level, there was an idea around an agency that could really work to support us, that could be a little bit more agile and community-based. And that's kind of where Every Child was born. And I think that's where we're transitioning to next, to talk a little bit about their work. But it's just been an indispensable resource. It's kind of like, how did we ever do this before without them? You know, from the staff being so generous and kind with their time, to our community learning about things and being able to engage. Like I said, like there really is no wrong door when we're working together, and we can get people plugged in to help in whatever capacity that they're able to at that time. So turn it over to Bree, I think. Unless I have another hidden slide in here. Or I might have some data. Dave, can we go to the next one? Okay, yeah, so we have just one more. So just to give some context, in Oregon, in our Tri-County region, we have 262 children currently in foster care. So the resource families, we have 174, 62 are that general group, and 112 for child specific or relative. The median length of time that a child spends in foster care is about 13.1 months, about that year mark. Consistently have challenges finding placements that siblings can all stay together. Teen placements, people are just afraid of teens, I don't know what's up with that. And culturally appropriate homes.
How many kids statewide?
I think we're like around the 4,000 or 5,000. I'd have to check that one. I'm very focused on our Central Oregon.
And what are the primary reasons they enter foster care?
It's typically multi-layered, so neglect, substance abuse, domestic violence tend to be kind of the top reasons, and usually those can be layered, more than one of those.
In Central Oregon, including Deschutes County and Crook
And Jefferson, yeah. And then the Confederated Tribes of Warm Spring has their own system. So we do have some youth that are from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, but they would only be in our care if they were living off of the reservation. Yeah. What do you take on? Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. And Emily doesn't like calling herself a champion, but she really is. Her position has helped mobilize all of us, all in a collaborative effort for the kids in Redmond and Central Oregon. So yeah, data has shown communities that we have the resources to support Redmond, Oregon foster youth, but we don't always mobilize and connect them well. So that is part of an area that Every Child has tried to step into. We can only successfully do that with our partnership with Oregon Department of Human Services. We do have a data sharing agreement with them, which allows us to receive more confidential information about a family's circumstances so that we might be able to come up with a more cohesive and quicker solution to get their kids back home and get the family reunited safely. We'll go ahead and go to the next one.
When they're placed in the foster homes, are they given counseling or something to kind of help them with that being taken out of their unit, even though sometimes, maybe it's not healthy, it's still what they've been accustomed to?
Yes, so you might need to add in some things.
That is part of like the onboarding, or for lack of a better word, when they come into care, they are seen for a mental health assessment and then plugged into ongoing counseling when needed. Some of them are already engaged in mental health services, so we would just make sure to keep up with that. And we work with partners like Rimrock and Deschutes County Behavioral Health and the other county-based mental health supports to find appropriate supports for them.
How do you recruit foster parents and families? What are the best ways?
I think it's best. I think the best way is making sure that our current foster families are really well supported, because they're our best recruiters. If they feel like they have the support, they're going to tell other people about it. So I think that that's probably the most fundamental way to do it. But just really getting out there, I think that there's opportunities that we haven't always taken, and maybe groups that we haven't talked to, and people that maybe haven't considered it. It's also a big leap. And so being able to work together and say, hey, maybe you're thinking about this, we could get you connected with a current resource family or foster family that could use some support and some respite, and then you can get experience and figure out if it's right for you. So there's a few.
Kind of assume that you're always looking for, because you don't have enough.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're always looking, and we want it to be the right time and the right family for the task. And so that's where a lot of my job comes in, is just talking to people from that like inquiry phase of when they're just exploring and making sure that they have all the information they need. It's a pretty long certification process, as far as we do the background checks, home studies, and then everybody does about 30 hours of training before they're certified.
And we, alongside other community partners as well, are attending almost every community event, fair, just to get out and get in front of people. And as Emily kind of led her presentation in with, it's not always time to be a foster provider, even though that is what we desperately need in this area. But every tiny piece of support, it's like the ripple effect. So dropping off a pizza to somebody's door feels like, well, that was nice of me. Like, they just got a pizza, cool. To a provider who maybe had court that day and was sitting in court all day long, and then came home and had her own child care of, and then on top of that, the youth in care that she's so graciously loving on and serving can mean a whole different thing. Volunteering with us even if it's not in a hands-on way where you're serving kids in person, all make a difference because it provides Melissa and I a larger amount of capacity to say, great, this program is off and running and we have this key volunteer who's just killing it. And now we can move on to this hole that's not yet filled. When people do want to become a provider, or think they might want to, they start with every child. We do an online, we're starting to do kind of some online, some in person, meeting called Explore Foster. It's very casual. We have providers there. We have an ODHS representative there. We talk about the process and what that would look like for somebody, some kind of low barrier requirements they would have to meet initially. And then we open up the floor and we tell them this is truly a no hold back question and answer session with the providers here and with the certifier here, whoever attends, because you shouldn't become a foster provider if you are not sure that it is right for you. And so sometimes we have to ask really hard and sometimes feeling really awkward questions to make sure that that's the right path for us. But yeah, that's a little bit about that process. We could go ahead and go forward.
What kind of financial support do they get in the state?
The providers.
Yeah.
So they get a monthly reimbursement. The amount varies depending upon a couple of factors, primarily the age of the youth in their care. When a youth comes into care and has that initial assessment done for like emotional and mental health status, they are assigned a different level, which then adjusts the reimbursement a touch higher, primarily because now the provider is going to be driving them to a lot of appointments. The reimbursement for the younger age group is right around $600.
Yeah, it's like $675 to about $775 for the whole age range, and that's without any of the like, a month. And that's really to just pay for basic needs of the child, but then it can go up depending on kind of the medical and mental health needs of a child.
And it goes down as they get older.
It goes up as they
as
get
they get
older. I'm assuming it's because they eat more. So.
It's
it's definitely not enough. Like the families spend more than that reimbursement typically on the needs of the child, and then any kind of extra things that a child or a teenager might need.
Something I always share about that reflection point is, I think you'll say, oh, $675, like that's a decent amount. Well, I have a 3-year-old and she attends preschool daycare full time so that I can work. And my preschool daycare bill is $1,250 a month. So, I mean, even myself and my husband, right now, this season of life is not right for us to foster because we're not in a position to pay for that much childcare on top of what we already do. So I always just kind of encourage people to think about the perspective of what kids do cost. It's insane. My son yesterday just had to have a $70 baseball mitt because the other 3 weren't correct. Anyhow, so we can go ahead and go forward a slide. Thank you. So who are we and what do we do? Like I said, we educate community about the foster care system and the youth that are in care. We serve in a very unique space. We have a partnership with ODHS, but we are not fully directly connected together in any other way. We serve kind of this gray area as a point of contact for resource families, other community members to reach out and want to volunteer, want to respite, want to, do all these different things. And then we are sort of the point of mobilization. So we say, Emily, you go here. Dave, you go over here. Bree's going to come over here because this is the right path for her to start on. And that's what she feels like she would get joy in doing. We're all about, if you're going to volunteer, if you're going to give time away from your family and the things that you love, you should enjoy yourselves while you're doing it. Through our My Neighbor program, which I'll dive a little deeper into later in the presentation, we provide hundreds of tangible goods a year. This program started at the heightened beginning of COVID. And a month prior to COVID, we were receiving maybe 8 tangible need requests. And then we launched the program mid-March of 2020. And then by the time we got to the end of April, we had received over 300 requests. So we went from, oh yeah, we can buy a car seat, to like, oh my goodness. We recruit new resource providers, support our current providers, and then we also support our hardworking ODHS staff.
Sir, do you have any extra pens?
We like to,
No.
I always like to share that we support our ODHS caseworkers because they are so selflessly serving our families right here in Redmond and Central Oregon. I know that the system is a flawed one that doesn't operate precisely as it should, or maybe precisely in the best way, the grandest view of how it could. Emily also knows that there are holes in the system. However, it is not our local wonderful ODHS staff's creation of these trouble points, these pain points within the system. I have had the pleasure over the past 2 years of meeting a lot of them, and it has been really, really moving on a personal level to see them caring so much about the kids. Getting texts and calls at 8:30 at night. Hey, I just found out that he has a band recital tomorrow and he needs his own flute, and I'm panicking because I don't want him to miss this opportunity. Like, what should we do? What can you do? Yeah, it's just been really special to get to see that. All right, go ahead. So Emily shared some state data with you, but I wanted to give you guys a good snapshot of what we're looking at here in Redmond. So in Redmond, we have 37 total resource families currently serving Redmond specific youth. Of the 37, 26 are relative or child specific. I know we covered relative specific. A child specific placement would be, for example, if my son's teacher learned that he was coming into foster care and was like, hold on, I know Eli, he's comfortable with me, like, could I serve as a temporary home for him? That's what that means. So we have 47 youth right now in Redmond in foster care and only 11 general homes. So you can see we have a clear numbers problem, which we're constantly navigating and mitigating. Go ahead. Some of the fun things that we have done when a youth enters foster care, there are often situations where they have to leave their home environment quickly for safety reasons, or if not safety reasons, just because it's a really emotionally traumatic transition in their lives, and it's better at that moment for them to not be sitting in that situation longer than necessary. So Melissa and I had a lovely period of our lives where we were driving pajamas out to La Pine. We live in Redmond, because the provider took a placement at 10:30 at night, and the kiddo had clothes come with them that weren't safe, clean, or adequate, or they didn't have anything coming with them. The foster providers, again, do receive a monthly reimbursement. The first month of care, when a youth is in their home, the reimbursement does not hit their account the next morning that they take the kiddo. It is a full 30-day period. So in that 30 days, a lot of kids in care immediately need shoes, clothes, school support in a variety of different ways, things like that. So every child, we serve the whole time, anytime a youth is in care, but it's typically within this first 30-day period that we have the highest needs for a youth. We do provide diapers and wipes at all times in all ODHS offices. When families come in for their family time with their youth, they're all set up with that and snacks. We we redid a space in Redmond. It used to be the old computer shop off of Evergreen. Yeah, I think that's kitty corner to 7-Eleven. How about that? They were leaving that building or leasing it out, subleasing it, and we came in and transformed it into a really beautiful home environment where you get to spend time with their families. We have a teen room and a dining room table and puzzles and board games and things that families should get to do and enjoy together during that time. Like I said, we take care of a lot of tangible needs. This last Christmas season, we held a special holiday respite night for youth, for families providing care. We did this at Journey Church in Redmond, just around the corner, the other direction from me. And it was such a joy. We were able to bring the kids in. We had Santa, we decorated cookies. We had a Polar Express themed obstacle course. And the providers got to drop off all youth in their home, bio or not, bio or in care, and just go for 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
It's a long night.
It was so fun. It was tiring. Our resource providers get very, very little breaks and are caring for kiddos sometimes with really, really high needs. And it's exhausting, if we're being honest. We, during these types of respite nights, have seen parents sleep in their cars. We've seen them come back from a date. We have heard of women browsing every aisle in Target twice because Target. So it's just an important way to serve our community. We are not directly involved in this, but I just want to share because it's something that's really cool in Redmond. There is a event in Redmond called Candy Cane Lane. It is actually completely organized start to finish by one foster family in Prineville. It is an amazing feat. Every year I've been blown away at what they're able to do. Some of the gifts that we collect for our Every Child gift drive flows into that. They set it up like a store and then foster providers come in. It's usually held at Calvary Church downtown. People come in and shop for their kids and their beautiful brand new toys. And they shop only for the youth in care in their home. But anyhow, it's something that's always been based in Redmond and is just a really beautiful part of Redmond and a beautiful way that they step in. Right. All right, so before we start this, our My Neighbor Tangible Goods program, we'll dive into after this video, but it's kind of a multi-layered program. And I love this video for giving you a really, really quick overview of what it looks like.
Oregonians step up to help their neighbor. In these challenging and often disconnected times, it is tough to know where needs exist in our own communities or how to effectively help. Welcome to My Neighbor. Real-time needs get posted from verified families who are connected to Oregon's foster and human services system. Those needs are immediately posted here and then seen by neighbors like you. Folks who see the important needs of families down the road and say yes. They click here to meet that need and either deliver or drop that item at a regional pickup site. It's that simple. People who care, answering the call to meet the need of their neighbors. That is My Neighbor. Click and care for families in your community now.
So quick overview of it. So My Neighbor is a needs request online link. Youth in care, families providing care, caseworkers, certifiers, teachers, CASAs, anyone that is related to a child in any way in care can go online and fill out this quick form. It just tells us how could your family or how could your community be supporting your family and this child. We receive requests simple from I got one today for a diaper bag and baby teething rings, something that's a pretty low financial investment, up to full-size trampolines for a youth who needed a physical outlet. We move thousands of items throughout the community. We have a 98% fulfillment rate of our community members and partners saying yes. This is a way for our community to remember that our kids, like the community's kids, Redmond's kids, are living maybe around the corner from you. And there can be a lot of, bureaucracy around who's supposed to do this and who doesn't do this and why not. But at the end of the day, I stand directing this program knowing that if somebody doesn't do it, nobody is going to do it. And that is unfortunate, but that is the reality of our current time. So things we get requests for: car seats, clothing, shoes, diapers, school support, extracurricular sports support, baby equipment. We'll have a provider who'll say, I don't ever want to take a baby. I only take school age youth. And then the next morning they're like, so I took a baby, but I don't have anything for the baby. Can you help? All right, go ahead. A way to get involved that I wanted to share with your group in particular, this is just a volunteer initiative. It's called The Neighborhood. So this is small groups of people. It says 4 to 8. We've also seen it work like 3 to 5. It just depends on how active and present your volunteers within your group want to be. You make a 6-month commitment to a local Redmond family. And what you do is you provide 1 meal a month, not one per person, just 1 meal a month. And then 1 to 2 acts of random kindness for the entire group. Again, not per person. This can be something as simple as sending them a text. Hey, I know you had court yesterday because we've developed a relationship and you shared that with me. And I know that's a tough day and I hope that you have a better morning, kind of a thing. That counts. We have also seen really neat relationships formed out of this program. And to be clear before I share this is not an expectation of the program. We have seen really cool relationships form, and we have a neighborhood volunteer right now doing tutoring for 30 minutes once a week with one of the youth in the home. So it can look like a lot of different things depending on what the group decides to do. You would be working with youth in care and meeting youth in care in this volunteer opportunity, which not all of our volunteer opportunities offer that. We're promoting community recognition and retention of our valuable families. We don't need to talk about the numbers again. There's a shortage. For every foster provider that decides they have to step out, that number grows wider in its gap. It's through, again, little things like this that we can provide support to our families and encourage them to keep doing the selfless work they do. A way to get involved if you love kids, but you're like, right now is definitely not a time for me to become a foster provider, is respite care. Respite care, it's just a fancy way of saying babysitting. Respite care can vary from just a few hours on a day up to, I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, 14 days.
Okay, up to 14 consecutive days. To volunteer with that, you go through a background check with us and take a short training because we're still living in COVID land. I always like to include, we don't need you to be vaccinated. We don't need to tell you to tell us if you are or aren't. Our respite volunteers receive an email when there is a care need. So if Emily reached out and said, hey, our family is trying to go out of state on a trip to see my grandma for this weekend, well, Youth in Care, to get them permissions to go out of state is a whole process and it's very lengthy. It can take a ton of time. So it's usually in the best interest just to find a great respite provider for that weekend. My family just did respite for the first time. Well, what day are we on? A little bit before Christmas. And it was so fun. And my kids still talk about this little gal and how she's doing and where she's at. And we have people who, concerns about how it would affect the kids in their home or their grandkids. And it has just taught our kids a lot of humility and grace. So what we do is we play matchmaker, basically. We gather volunteers, information, what ages they're interested in serving, and then we pass their information to the foster providers, and then we step out and you guys work through this. Right, we'll go next. This one ended up a little. So now you have all of this information, and it's never good to info dump things on everybody and not tell you ways to get involved. You can support an emergent tangible need through our My Neighbor program. That link is a little farther down. If you want to do that, you jump on that platform. It's exceptionally easy to use. You pledge a need that you feel like you can fulfill, and then you will be hearing from me to coordinate how to drop off the item and whatnot. That is if you feel like I'm feeling called to provide an item that I know this kid needs right now. Something that we are always in need of is small dollar, I mean, anywhere from 20 to a higher mark, like $100 gift cards to Freddy's, Walmart, anything, right here. When we have kids, this is always a hard one to share, but we have a teen who comes into care. This is a pretend example. And the youth comes into care with the clothes on their back that are not appropriately fitting and shoes on their feet that are not appropriate for the season. And we have a provider who is going through this transition of welcoming a child into the home to love. They need clothes, and they need clothes right now. And for those of us who have been in high school, particularly the ladies, the way that you dress, regardless of whether we would like it to be or not, is important when you're a teen. It helps you identify who you are, identify your friend group. And so there are options for youth to get used clothing, and that is also perfectly appropriate, but it's a process. So they have to apply, they have to wait to get the voucher. And so there's really this time frame where there's just no resources. Other things we use gift cards for are emergently needed car seats. When a youth enters care, the provider does not receive a car seat from ODHS. So, can you say yes to an infant if you've never taken the infant? Yes. Can you take the infant in the car to drive to buy the car seat that you have to keep them safe? No. So I am delivering car seats like I am the car seat fairy. During the month of May, it's Foster Care Appreciation Month. We've partnered with the Center Foundation. They are taking donations. So you purchase a meal and it will be delivered the day before Mother's Day. And it's a really, really fancy gourmet meal, like sides, courses, desserts, beverages, all pre-made and ready to eat. And they're just delivering them right to the doors of our foster providers as a thank you for serving as a parent figure to the youth in your care. Yes, you can always donate through My Neighbor, and then you can always become a resource family for placements. And if that doesn't feel like a good path for you right now, but you'd like to help kids, you can get in touch with us to be a respite. That does it for us. Questions for me
Quick
or
question.
Emily?
It's been a number of years ago, but wasn't the fire department here in Redmond helping people procure car seats if they didn't?
Yes. So they had a large grant that they were using for safe car seats, and it was so cool. You would go, they would show you how to properly install it. Unfortunately, the funding ran out for that, so they don't. Now in the city of Bend, the police department received a similar grant on a much smaller scale. So we're able to help Bend families in that way. But yes, whenever we can direct a provider to someone who is already doing it and doing it well, we're very happy to send them their way.
Sounds like we have a lot of, a decent number of partnerships with churches and church groups, like, I don't know, Catholic charities, people like that. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have just local partnerships,
Right.
but we partner with Mountain View Church here in Redmond in a variety of capacities. Prineville Nazarene, Bend Nazarene Church, New Hope, and Journey Redmond, Journey Bend. They all partner with us in different ways. So some hold events for us, some help with financial contributions or tangible needs. It just kind of depends on the season of time.
Is there a process when the child ages out to help them integrate into the adult society?
Yes. So let me start with the first starting ground, which I think is probably a lingering question now. When a youth transitions back to their family of origin with mom and dad or whoever that looks like, we serve them during that time too. So we don't serve biological families directly, but we continue providing services with the youth as long as they have an open child welfare case. So we have seen bio families work really, really, really hard to get their kids back and spend every dime and penny they have to get into a place, because we know the housing crisis in Central Oregon, if you haven't heard that before. And then they hit like a really small roadblock, like their kiddo needs a bed for their home to be approved for kiddo to come home. So we are starting to serve in that capacity. To answer your direct question, when a youth is aging out of care, there are different organizations that they can choose to continue to be a part of, not every child. And it's called the Independent Learning Program.
Yeah, when kids are 15, they can start participating in independent living programs, and that really teaches a lot of life skills, job stuff, resumes, and there's a lot of funding for kids kind of in that phase to help them transition into different education, housing, and kind of that lift off. And there's actually a really cool thing that Every Child does for those youth as well, but that's a state program or state funded ILP, independent living program.
Back in Michigan, I just moved here from Michigan. We had a group called Big Family, and they were all about these kids that are aging out and had no place to go. And they didn't manage to handle all the needs, but they're an important part of the process for sure. And there are groups like that.
Yeah, ILP does a lot of that kind of connection to the different organizations. So, as you can imagine, a lot of these youth haven't had like a stable parent figure that has taught a lot of those life skills. So that's really the purpose of that program. But it's a really difficult time for kids to be launching out on their own. So especially here, so we do see a lot of of those youth having challenges. So that's why they've actually, I think it used to start at 16 and they just notched it down to 15, and they're going to notch it down to 14 to start getting those skills earlier.
What curiosity, what percentage approximately of the kids end up being able to go back to their family?
I think it's about 50% end up
So
going.
you got 50% that never go back.
So that around the year mark of a child being in foster care, that's when they're going to start looking at adoption or guardianship potentially, if that family of origin hasn't met the milestones needed to have the kids back. Again, case by case, things kind of shift back and forth, but yeah, we're at about 50%. So oftentimes those youth will be adopted, or guardianship is kind of a similar process to adoption, but not quite as complicated legally. They will stay with those current caretakers, but sometimes they go kind of in that open pool of youth free for adoption as well.
What happened with those days with caretakers of people that have been their foster family?
Yeah, it can look different for everybody, but a lot of times if they've been with a foster family and that foster family's in a place to adopt, we see that happen pretty frequently. But yeah, there's some kids that just kind of hang in this gray area for a while.
Well, you mentioned the adoption by the foster family. How often does that occur?
Gosh, I don't know. Statistically, I would say just anecdotally, it happens pretty frequently. Again, there's a variety of factors, like if they have family family is always going to get priority in adoption or guardianship of a child. So if they are placed with a non-relative and then a relative comes out of kind of the woodwork in another state, they're going to be kind of looked at a little bit more favorably at times. But it goes through a committee process, and a committee reviews all the documentation and makes a determination.
And now I mean adopted to actually by name, family name into a family and give them that new foster family's name.
Oh, I think that's a slightly different legal process. I think when the adoption happens, it doesn't necessarily change the name. So I think that would probably be a subsequent process. And I know a lot of youth, that's the only family they know, and they'll choose to kind of take that family name. But that wouldn't be something our agency would facilitate.
Screen foster parents, families. You screen them with the idea is this going to be a temporary thing, or is it something that it works out that I'd be interested in adopting a child? So you kind of know where they're coming from, don't you?
Yeah, a lot of people are pretty clear in their intentions when they start fostering.
Right.
We hope that people can be supportive of reunification. And so there is kind of this ask that we're asking of our foster families, like, we want you to be able to be supportive of reunification, but people know that the statistics are about 50% end up needing guardianship or adoption. So most of our families that are interested in fostering are also interested in adoption, especially with the child that they've bonded with.
And on a case-by-case basis, you can tell what the odds are from kid to kid, and they be different. This kid probably ain't going to be going back to his family of origin, or he's very likely to.
Yeah, it's hard to know, but that
Yeah.
is sometimes the case.
Yeah.
What's the age group of your resource families? Like, I'm pushing 70. Am I too old?
No, not at all. Not at all. So, and this question leads us to a great follow-up piece of info. So we have foster providers as young as, I think our youngest.
You have to be 21.
Yeah, but I think we have a 21-year-old provider. So 21, all the way through whatever age you feel like you can continue to love on and be a resource for a kiddo in need. No, you are most certainly not too old to do it. We have several retiree couples who provide care. One important thing that I think, because this question came up to know, is you don't have to be a foster parent that takes a kid and keeps them for 5 years. Clearly that's wonderful when that happens, but sometimes kids do need what we call like emergency shelter care. So that might be a situation where grandma stepped up and said, I would like to take on my grandkiddo instead of having them enter a general foster home. But in order to do that, she needs 4 days to get the car seats and get the fire extinguishers in her house and just a little time to get set up. So there's commonly situations like that where a kiddo is just in need of a place to land and be loved on for a weekend. To do that, because it's different than respite care, you do have to be fully certified and trained through the state. But yeah, that's always a kind of intermediary way to serve kids as well.
You said before that's about a 30-day process.
Well, it's about 40 hours of training. Most of the training is online, so that's pretty convenient. Once the training process starts, you then are applying for your home study. Your home study takes 3 months.
Yeah, we say 3 to 6 months. It's a pretty long process.
Well, okay.
Yeah, and during that process, they're going to be asking you about your background, what your experience is or was like raising your own kids, about your job, to make sure that you are understanding that you might need to plan for childcare if you're going to be a foster provider. They are going to ask some uncomfortable questions, past experiences we've had in life before, not because they're being nosy, but because they're trying to find which kiddos would fit best in your home. So I've had questions at our Explore Fosterings frequently, like, well, I grew up in a home with alcoholics, so surely I'm disqualified. No. And if you are able to be around alcohol in a healthy way, or you've chosen not to be around it at all, you would probably be a great resource to a teenager who is leaving a home, coming from an alcoholic environment. So there's lots of things that always pop up during these meetings. Well, I can't be a foster provider because I'm single. Nope, we have single providers too, so.
And they're awesome.
They're really awesome.
We have a really amazing community of families here, and I think that before I entered this role, I had no idea. And the things that they do and the ways that they go above and beyond are really admirable for these kids that have experienced a lot of trauma, and they have challenging behaviors at times. You know, they're giving these families a run for their money, and you know, but beyond that, they're just kids at the end of the day. And I think that's one thing that our resource families really see, that these kids just kind of need that little bit more wraparound. So
What's the most important thing? Now, be quiet. That you're looking for in matching a kid with a family or a couple or an individual?
yeah, I mean, it starts with kind of the preferences that the family has, like, and what they feel equipped to do. And it might start that, like, we have a family that hasn't parented a lot, and so we have a general family night. Like, they start kind of with this area that they're more comfortable with. And then we provide a lot of ongoing training. So maybe through ongoing trainings and experience, they can kind of broaden their scope. So it really depends on the person, and we want to make sure it's a good match for both, you know?
Yeah, it's important that the person taking the person in is, you know, understanding what they're doing.
For sure.
You know? So there's no like racial or any other kind of criteria that
I mean, we hope
overrides
that
everything?
we can provide youth culturally appropriate whenever possible. So a Spanish speaking youth probably is
Right.
going to do best with a Spanish speaking family,
I think so.
or, you know, other religious or cultural considerations.
Sure.
Right now, our pool, I would say, is not big enough to
Yeah.
really match in all of those wonderful ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the ideal hope. And in their county or community of origin, you know, we have kids, because we operate as a district, our hope, you know, for a Bend kid is that they can land in Bend. But if we find a placement in Redmond and that's all we have, you know, they're driving back and forth to school. And we have kids in Madras going to school in Redmond. And so just thinking about those disruptions that causes for that youth. So the community, I would actually answer your question. Number one, probably be try to find the community first.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
We
sorry.
appreciate you, everything that you do, and if you guys have additional questions, you guys probably aren't gonna rush out of here, but otherwise.
Thank you.